What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Modified Garage. Today we finally got back to the build that we were doing in the GMC Sierra. There it is. We're gonna show you how we got from here to that. Nice. What happened from the very beginning, customer brought the vehicle, we were supposed to do the upholstery into it, and we ended up with the wrong template for the vehicle. So we ran into issues, being that it ended up being seats from Avalanche. Apparently there's multiple templates for this vehicle. Now we're back on track. Catskin sent us a brand new kit. We're gonna go ahead and start fresh with that kit. We're gonna explain why we're not gonna end up using this seat, because the customer ended up bringing us this seat. So we're gonna take pieces of this seat and put it into here. That's gonna give us that final result. First thing first, we're gonna go ahead and remove the headrest. We're gonna start taking off the exterior parts of the skin. So we're gonna remove these little panels that cover the seat belt, pop right off, and then you can literally lift up and it comes right out. We're gonna paint these, by the way. So we already painted one of them on the other seat. So we gotta clean these up and make them look pretty. On the seat belt, I think we're just gonna have to leave them gray, unfortunately, because these things don't do very well when they're painted. Next thing, we're gonna go ahead and get the tool to remove the torque bit that's holding the seat belt in. Remove the seat belt. These things come right off after pushing the little pins in the holes. We're gonna go ahead and remove the wiring from here, which is gonna end up being the seat belt wire. It detaches from under here, you can see right there. And then we'll go ahead and start removing the seats itself. These things pop out from the bottom, so you can stick your hand underneath and it'll literally dislodge from the actual seat cushion itself. Force the fabric right back over, and everything's held on by Velcro. Now this is just this seat that ends up operating like this. Not every seat is held on by Velcro. A lot of the new seats for modern cars, they have what's called hog rings, and they end up having these rods that go through the middle of the foam instead of the Velcro. And then you take these hog rings and you just clamp them in. This one, told her it's different. So we got the seat cover off. As I mentioned before, there's a bunch of little clips that hold everything to the frame of the entire seat. So we have that. Now trash. Because this thing has missing foam right here, if I don't have a second seat, normally we would just add foam in here, trim it, and try to do our best to make sure it's as flush as possible to basically mold to that empty void of foam. But we have a second seat here that we're gonna take that good foam, transfer it onto here. It should leave us with brand new product. This one actually comes up, it's slightly glued. If you actually maneuver it good enough, you should be able to remove the entire foam without any type of obstacles like that. So now we have just frame of the entire seat itself. Everything doesn't look too bad here, aside from maybe these guys right here. This one's supposed to be one piece, but I think the overall construction is actually not too bad. So we can actually use this. Moving on to the next part, what I do want to talk about, because I forgot to mention it earlier, is that when you remove the headrests, there's little holes. So you're gonna take a little pick and you'll stick it into the hole and it pivots just like so. Once you end up releasing both holes in here, you'll be able to pull out the headrest completely. Otherwise it locks itself into place, so that way the headrest doesn't go flying. Next step is to remove the top portion of the seat cover. This one ends up coming off with basically like a little plastic that covers another plastic and it gaiters it together. That's the best way I can explain it. Easiest way to get a hold of that is just flip the seat upside down. We'll go ahead and flip the seat on its belly, on its side here, and then we'll go ahead and unlatch it by using a little pick, a heavy duty pick, and we'll separate the two together. And what you do is just stick the pick inside here and just unlatch them, so that way they unbuckle themselves. Then you can peel it apart. There's the little lever of it, and it just sinks into this part right here, that crevice. Now we're just gonna take the back end of the seat, pull these little wings off, and now we can lift everything completely off. One last step that we need to do before we completely remove it off is pull this plastic panel off. Take a little flathead and just pry it gently as possible off without breaking it. This is very old, so let's see if I can do it without breaking it. You literally just gotta like kind of pick at it at the corner of it and try to just pry it off. Unfortunately, I have the horrible technique. I'm gonna do this off camera. We'll go ahead and get this off. So now to get the rest of the cover off, you'll just peel upwards, but we wanna make sure we get this little lip over our plastics here. Pry those up and around, so that way we pull it off all in one shot. And there we go. Cool. Next thing, we're gonna go ahead and start removing the seat cover off. And remember, on the other one, it had Velcro, so you're gonna see this one also coming off with a Velcro. So the best thing to do is to hold the Velcro and separate them first. So stick your hand in there. Sorry, you're not gonna be able to see that part of it, but you're gonna just have to trust the process. Rip the Velcro up from the material. And that'll loosen the material. You just take the foam and scrunch it and remove it one part at a time. on each side. Back and forth until you get the whole thing off. Yay! So next we're gonna go ahead and take the other one apart off camera. We'll go ahead and remove the foam from there, put it onto this one, and start the process backwards. So we got the new foam off of this one. One thing that I also did off camera is I ended up gluing the Velcro because it came off. So I ended up taking like a 2-step glue, ended up gluing it back together. We're gonna start with the bottom cover first. I just like it because it's easy. Take a look at the fabric. Getting into the next step, first you gotta pay attention to where your cat skin attaches to the frame of the seat. If it's not attaching to the frame, it's attaching to the cushion, whatever it may be. Flip it inside out and then pay attention to where your Velcro hog rings are gonna end up tying into. You wanna make sure that it lines up with the crevice of the intended Velcro portions. We're gonna try to line this one up first, along with this middle line right here. We're gonna go ahead and install the Velcro in place, like so. We're gonna go ahead and shove the back part in, like so. That will line up all of our Velcro for the sides right here, that we can literally just Velcro in place. And you might have to maneuver this around a couple times based off of where to get the best look for it. Make sure this one's tied into place with the Velcro. Pull this one down, and now we can conform the rest of the seat back into place. Now on the bottom, you have your little hooks that's gonna go on the frame itself. So there's the frame, and we're gonna go ahead and jam the little hooks right here into the frame by twisting it upside down, like so, and then sink it into that little frame part of it. And then you just shove it back up so that it clicks into place, like so. And that's gonna hold your seat covers to the frame. Now I'm gonna do all the rest of it off camera to get everything nice and perfect. This one's gonna come back and do the same thing on the back, stick to the back of the frame. You won't be able to see too much of that anyways. We'll go ahead and finish the rest of the bottom, and then I'll show you how to put on the top. So this is the final completion of the bottom. We have a couple little wrinkles, but these guys are gonna come out once we throw it into the vehicle. Let's get to the next piece, which is gonna be the back. This one's a little bit harder because you actually have to do the Velcro second. What you're gonna do is slip the whole piece over, and it has to come all the way on, then pull the seat belt up. We're gonna have to cut the slit for the seat belt and then finally pull pressure on it. Then we'll go ahead and reach our hand in, try to guide our hand to each part of the Velcro by using a little bit of feel from the inside. Once we get that set up, then we can go ahead and clamp everything down from the bottom. After everything's said and done, then we'll cut out the very top hole, get the seat headrests back in place. Get to it. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start slipping it over. You gotta be careful with this one. There's zippers for the bottom, which is what clasps seat together when you're done, so you'll just put it back together. But you gotta make sure that this thing is completely to the very bottom. Otherwise, once you get to the zipper portion of it, it will not go on. What you're gonna do is just a little at a time, pull it down, and then once you get to the bottom, it's gonna give you this little rough edge. You're gonna have to like kind of squeeze and pull at the same time. And you'll do just like how we pull it off, goes back on the same way. Mind you, be very careful, because even though it's still leather, you can still rip the stitching. Now that we're really close to getting into the bottom, we're gonna tuck this stuff in from here and then pull from the back to try to get as much slack to the bottom as possible, and just kind of work your way to bring it as tight as possible. And if it's done correctly, you should see pretty much no wrinkles all on the side. And the bolsters should line up to the point where you shouldn't have too much wrinkles coming from the front. So now what you're gonna wanna do is take the seat and actually move it backwards so you can fit your arm underneath and get all the Velcro to line up on the corner. That's what's gonna give us this nice definition into the entire middle of the seat. You're gonna take your vice grips and then you're gonna go ahead and hook it up to your seat handle and just go ahead and move your vice grip down. That should be able to move your seat all the way back as far as possible. We need to push the seat belt through now first. So let's go ahead and cut out our hole for the seatbelt. In order to identify where you're gonna end up making cuts, first you wanna make sure that it's pulled as tight as possible. In order to make your cuts, you wanna feel around for where it's gonna end up mating to the plastic piece. Just by experience, I can just go ahead and cut it from here until it hits the next opposite side over here. And that's gonna allow me to get down to the foam where I can just cut a little bit of the foam, and be careful because your seatbelt is right there. I don't believe it's that easy to cut the seatbelt, but you wanna make sure you don't cut it as well. And then I'm also gonna make a little T-notch right here because we're gonna have to open it up a little bit downwards as well. Just a little bit on the top, and simply pull back your seatbelt out of the bottom. And we have our seatbelt. Now in this particular vehicle, the leftover fabric goes between the plastic and these little notches right here. So there's one of them, and that's where the seatbelt actually mounts to. And it kind of clicks in like a seat buckle. So that way when you end up with the final result, clicks back into place like so. Now we're going back to the part where we need to Velcro everything back down. So I'm gonna pull my fabric even harder, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start pushing my fabric into the crevice where the Velcro will finally attach to it. And you might have to move your material over to really sink into that crevice. If you don't get it to attach, you're gonna have a bolt and it's gonna look like this. You don't want it to be flimsy. So what you're gonna do is take a really sharp blade, start cutting out the hole for the top part of it. And then just like the seat, we're gonna just make a little T, just a small one, because if you make it too big, you're literally gonna see it. And then that'll give us enough clearance to be able to fold everything behind. We'll go ahead and shove it a little bit further into the material, so that way it looks seamless and flush. There we go. On your first one, you're gonna actually wanna pull it out. On the second one, cut it. These things are so ridiculously hard to pull off. And actually, to put them on is just as hard. If you've done one of these before, skip it, cut it, move on. I don't really need to know how it goes back together, even though I've done so many of these. Let's just go ahead and cut it open, put the new one on, and what you're gonna end up doing is taking your body and squishing it to you, so that way you can fit it in between. Let me show you. Comes out really easy, goes on really hard. Start from the corner. You're gonna notice that there's actually one direction on the headrest. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes on these Chevys, but this has like a little concave and it's very faint. That's gonna match with the faint concave of the front. It's also really difficult trying to identify. If you look at the stitching, one of them's a little bit more straight and one of them bulges out, so we know this is the concave one. So we're gonna go ahead and shove it in and really take your time on this one, because this is so easy to damage. We're gonna push it onto the table, put pressure, and feed it in a little at a time. You can actually hear some of the material starting to tear if you end up going too much onto the fabric trying to stretch it. So just flip the other side and try to get the other side to go. I made this look really easy because I've done so many of them, but it's actually one of the hardest things to do about the whole kit. Some cars are so much harder to do than this one. All right, so we have everything. We're gonna stretch it as much as possible, pull out all the wrinkles, and then that'll allow us to go ahead and click this in place. Stretch it a little bit, fold the little lip over, and click the whole dang thing in place. And that's going to be our headrest. So overall, out of the difficulty level, I would say this one's probably like a 7 out of 10. It's not the easiest thing to do. It's not the hardest thing to do. Catskin really makes everything easy as far as being able to do it. If you have done these multiple times, they make everything seamless, and fitment is really spot on, as you can see. So this is gonna be the end of this video. Follow us, subscribe, and also check out Catskin's product. Hopefully we get another build coming up soon with another Catskin setup, so we can see some of the cool colors that they offer and materials. I'll see you on the next one.